How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Brad, and you are whoever you are. I'm well. Hopefully you're well. Hopefully everyone's well. Last night, Superman and Lois made their return to the television airwaves over on the CW. If you live in Canada, then you watched it on the CTV Sci-Fi channel. And elsewhere all in the world, I'm not really sure where you watched it. Now, there's a lot to cover in this episode. There's going to be spoilers, but as usual, you know that I'm just generally crap at reviewing TV shows and movies, but I'll do my best. So the episode's called Broken Trust, and the main events of the episode really are just a continuation, obviously, of the previous episodes. So we're following the Tag storyline, that thin gold thread of what's happening to Tag. We're following what's going on as far as Lana and Kyle and their relationship, and how Morgan Edge really wants Lana and just brushes Kyle off, even though Kyle is the one that has made it possible for Morgan Edge to gain such a foothold in Smallville. We're following the Jordan and Jonathan thread, their relationship to each other, while Jordan tries to navigate this whole world of having powers, but do I have powers, and what are they, and they're developing, and oh my goodness, puberty sucks when you're the son of Superman, and you also want to be on the football team, and you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you've always been a loser, and now you're not a loser, and you want to show the world, so you're on the football team. There's that whole storyline. The brotherly storyline is actually one of my favorite threads, probably in the whole show, which is strange. You'd figure it would be the Superman storyline, but I actually really enjoy watching these two brothers interact. And of course, we've got Lois, who is, if you remember, really just trying to get her nose into that mine because she wants to know what's going on. And then, of course, there's just the Superman thread in general. So the relationship, or possibly dissolving relationship, between this Earth's Sam Lane and Clark Kent / Superman is being strained by the events. Okay, so let's just get into it. For starters, Jonathan, who we know his powers are developing and is on the football team, is giving Clark reason to doubt whether it's a good idea that he's on the football team or not. Now, we know that Clark, because his character, what he's like in general, is to try and see the best, see the positive, see the hopeful in a situation, and also because he loves his son, Jordan. He's like, well, okay, you're on the football team, so how I'll deal with that is I will become an assistant coach of the football team so I can be there and keep my eye on you. And let me tell you, it was a very good idea. The football game they're playing in this episode was against Metropolis, their old school. So now you have Jonathan on the football team, who is now facing his old teammates. So now there's definitely going to be rivalry there. And then you have Jordan, who was basically a loser in his school, who is now not only on the football team, but feeling like he has to prove himself to these people that made him feel so low and so small and picked on him for all that time. Add to that the fact that we see that Jordan's super hearing is developing in a very nasty kind of way. It's all loud screeches and squeals, and it's hurting his head. He's got to put his hands up, and it's just, imagine the worst migraine possible because of a high-pitched squealing sound. And times that by 100, and that's the development of Jordan's super hearing. And it happens at the worst times, and it's causing his eyes to redden, and he needs to have ocular outbursts to deal with this. He managed to hold it in the first time it happened at school. The bell rang in the hallway, and it caused his ears to ring, and there was almost an ocular outburst, but Jordan and Jonathan kind of handled it, and it went away. Well, flash forward to the football game, where he's all young, teenage testosterone and hormones and trying to prove himself on the football field, and he wants to get revenge on the one jock that always just is a douche and picked on him. And to make a long story short, he finally gets his chance, and he slams him to the ground, which is really a misuse of his powers. He was too forceful. Clark sees it from the sideline, and he's not happy with it. And then there's a pile-on, and they're all just piling on him and clobbering Jordan. And so what happens? Obviously, he's not really that hurt by it, but his eyes are beginning to heat up again, and Clark sees it, runs out to the field, and everyone's kind of backed off, and Clark sticks his hand under Jordan's eyes and says, let it out. And Jordan's like, no, I'll be all right. No, let it out. And so he has to let that whole heat vision blast go right in Clark's hand. Oh, that's a great scene. That is love right there. He just takes, but he's on the field in front of all those, the spectators, the other students and the parents and stuff like that. It was a very close call. People could have gotten hurt. People could have gotten killed. People could have found out that, you know, he's the son of Superman by just the heat vision blast. Who knows? Now later on after the game, they're in their hotel room in Metropolis, they're discussing things, and Clark has an emergency, which I'll get to in just a second. When he's leaving, he says, "Stay here." And so the idea is Jordan and Jonathan are supposed to stay in the hotel room. Well, not long after Clark leaves, their football buddies roll up and they're like, "Hey, let's go to the liquor store and go chum around and be, young teenage guys out in Metropolis." And so what happens? Jonathan's trying to play the good son. He's like, "No, we got to stay home. My pop says we got to stay here." But Jordan, who is, let's face it, he is experiencing popularity and acceptance on a larger scale from the cool people, the people who once picked on him in this school. They love him. They adore him. He's experiencing acceptance from that crowd on a large scale. So instead of going, "Yeah, we got to stay here. My dad says we got to stay here," he decides, "Yeah, well, no, it can't hurt. Well, we'll go out with them. Come on, we'll go. It's not And so Jonathan has to go with him because he's got to keep an eye on his brother. So all of the Smallville football team, they're out and they're having some drinks and they're just on the town kind of hanging out in like a back alleyway or whatever when the Metropolis football team shows up and there's a dust up. Jordan ain't having none of it. He is feeling for once like he's in control, like he has power, and he's not going to let those Metropolis jerks pick on him and run him into the dirt. And there's very nearly a fist fight, and Jonathan tries to get in the way. And Jordan loses control and goes to sock the quarterback of the Metropolis team. And Jonathan puts his hand in the way and catches his fist. And his fist and his arm, it shatters. He probably will never play football again. At least that's what the story is leading us to believe. That this one event where Jordan loses control for a second is going to possibly affect his brother Jonathan for the rest of his life. Now, I'll just say on a personal note, I don't think that'll happen. I think that both the Super Sons will become Super Sons. I think that both of them will have powers that will develop. I think we're going to see Jonathan sit back and in his brother's shadow for a while, and then his powers will begin to develop, but one child at a time for the show and for the writing and for the drama. And so I think that when his powers do begin to develop, I feel like that won't be an issue. But right now, we're being led to believe that this is a very big deal. Someone loses control, and then because he loves his brother so much, now he has to pay for his loss of control, his lapse in judgment, his mistake, possibly, in theory, for the rest of his life. And it will affect his whole football career. And let's face it, Jonathan loves football. He identifies with football. This is a big deal for him. Jordan, you know that he's kind of doing it for now. He's good at it. It's making him feel like he's a something. I think if the show's trajectory is allowed to continue for the duration of their entire high school career, I don't think that Jordan will stay on the football team. I think that this is just a temporary thing. That's what makes this whole thing, this whole moment that has affected Jonathan's life so important. The guy who actually wants to be a football star may not ever be able to be one. Now, that emergency that I was telling you about that Clark had to go and fly off to deal with is the fact that Tag is still around. And in the beginning of the episode, if you remember how it left off with episode 5, Tag was confronting Jordan. He has video footage on his phone. He believes that it is Jordan's fault because of that ocular blast that he now has these powers. Because remember the barrel that was hit way back in episode 1? He believes that it is Jordan's fault, and he's scared because he's fast, he's strong, and he keeps vibrating all weird like the Flash trying to vibrate through things, and he really doesn't understand what's going on. He's just a scared kid. Wouldn't you be scared if you all of a sudden had superpowers and didn't know where they came from and you just wanted your old life back? Of course. And so he's pissed, he's scared, he's frantic, and he's laying the beat down to Jordan when Jordan, behind his back, clicks open the Superman Zippo and clicks on the button, and Superman, his dad, comes boom right there, and he's trying to deal with him. He's trying to calm the child down. Of course, Superman wants to help. Now, that story is picked up again later when Clark has to leave that hotel room in a mighty hurry because Tag, who Superman lost track of in the beginning of the episode, has resurfaced again in Metropolis, and he's gone to Sarah's house, and he's just trying to talk to a friend. He's scared. Remember, he's a teenager with powers that he doesn't understand, doesn't even know where they came from. He just wants things to go back to normal, and he wants someone to talk to, and he's trying to talk to Sarah. But his powers, they're all out of control. He doesn't know how to control them, and he ends up knocking her out. And so what does he do? he thinks that the best option is to pick her up and take her back to Metropolis, to his weird, creepy warehouse hideout that he's been staying in. To make a long story short, Superman shows up on the scene, and he's trying to help Tag and trying to deal with him before the authorities that be with their guns, directed by Sam Lane, who really just thinks that Tag is a national security risk, comes to deal with him. And they show up, and they're gonna start pumping rounds into Tag. They open fire. Superman gets in the way, stops all the bullets. Kryptonite bullets, live kryptonite rounds, are shot out of one of the fella's guns as well. And all 4 rounds go right into Superman. He gets pissed. The big guy gets fired up, pulls the rounds out, tosses them aside, incinerates them with his heat vision. He is just upset and angry that they were going to neutralize this kid. This kid that Superman is trying to help, trying to be there for. They were just going to kill him because he's just a risk. Clark really gets an idea of what Sam is like, that he was willing to neutralize a child, and he is not happy. And you can see there's a coldness right there from that moment from Clark to Sam. That is a definite difference, that Sam is willing to do whatever it takes. And Clark has that line, "No, we don't kill. We do not kill. You were going to shoot rounds into that guy, and he's just a kid." Now, while that's going on, we have Lois, who's just trying to get into the mines. And she's already tried to convince Lana to let her into the mines, to feed her information. And Lana and Kyle, I mean, they just think that the mine is a good thing. They feel that Morgan Edge has swooped in and created a situation that is saving these families, when the reality is he's probably behind all the crap in the first place, of the foreclosed homes and the not work. I mean, this is how these things always work out, right? Metropolis, Smallville probably is not in nearly as much trouble as it seems. It's just Morgan Edge is probably back there tweaking the knobs behind the scenes, like a really nasty Wizard of Oz, you know. No, he's nothing like the Wizard of Oz. Anyway, so she's getting nothing from Lana, and of course nothing from Kyle. He's already in a bad mood, and Lois shows up, and she's trying to say, "Hey, listen, I don't think he's good. I think he's up to no good. I think he's got his own nefarious sort of, plans behind the scenes, and we're all kind of falling for it." And they're all like, "No, he's helping the town. We're not going to give you access to this guy who, if you're going to do an expose on him, we're going to betray the person that's helping us so that you can get a story. No, not happening." Well, she does end up finding her way into the mine, not through anything that she's done, but because the Lex Luthor from the other world, the same world with the evil Superman, has shown up with 2 security passes into the mine, and they're now posing as workers going into the mine, and they're both going to get the scoop on what's going on. And the funny thing is, Luthor knows exactly where to go to unearth, to chip into the wall, to see this X-kryptonite. We know why Luthor wants it. X-kryptonite gives humans temporary Kryptonian-like powers. And he breaks off a piece, and he's got it. You know what he wants it for. He wants to take down Superman, who he perceives as evil. Because remember, on his world, that Superman was a bad guy. Either way, Lois is dumbfounded. He's like, "Look, it's X-kryptonite." She's like, "What's X-kryptonite?" She has no idea what it is. Which leads me to believe that there's a good chance that Clark doesn't know what it is either. I do think it's kind of weird that X-kryptonite is growing in a cave on Earth when kryptonite is a Kryptonian substance, a Kryptonian radioactive mineral. Why it's growing on Earth doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe it's like you drop the crystal in the cave and then it grows itself. I really don't understand that yet, and we're not given the information for me to understand it. Either way, Morgan Edge's right-hand lady shows up with all heat vision eyes and tries to, incinerate them and burn them to death because they're in the mine. But wouldn't you know it, Luthor pulls out this fancy little smancy lightsaber gun thing that shoots a pure and takes her right out, completely neutralizes her, and they make their escape. Now, by the end of the episode, Lois manages to convince Lana that Morgan Edge is definitely up to something funny. I mean, to be fair, Lana had asked Lois what makes her think that he's up to no good, and she couldn't say anything yet. But after coming out of those mines, she's like, now she's ready to kind of spill the guts a little bit and say why she thinks what she does. And Lana is definitely more on the edge of believing her, especially since Sarah had been kidnapped, and I think they're starting to figure out that things might actually be somewhat connected. Either way, It was a fantastic episode. As usual, the show didn't have a ton of Superman in it because it's supposed to showcase all of these individual stories. Lois has her thread, the boys have their thread, and then Superman/Clark has his thread. And you have to make equal time, proportionate time for all of those stories to develop. And this show seems to have a very good mix, a very good formula for when to bring out the cape and when to put it away in an episode. At any rate, the episode closes out with Jordan being in a very bad place and Superman having to grab him and fly him to the Fortress of Solitude because Jordan's powers are all out of whack. My final thoughts would be that I think that Jordan's powers are actually real. I don't think they're influenced anything whatsoever by the X-kryptonite. I feel like this is his Kryptonian genes kind of kicking in, and by the end of the season, I'm sure we'll see him being able to control 1 or 2 powers, or maybe he'll be fully powered. I don't know, but I think when this whole X-kryptonite thing is done and we're on to season 2 with a new threat that might not have anything to do with this X-kryptonite, we will see a Jordan that still retains his powers because those are based on his Kryptonian heritage and not on a glowing yellowish green crystal. And then my final thought on the show is that I kind of feel like we're learning that Lex Luthor is not a villain. I don't feel like he's a villain. I feel like the real villain in this is actually Morgan Edge. And I don't think that Luthor is. I feel like Luthor may actually be a good guy. On his world, it might be reversed. Maybe the Superman was actually evil and he's actually good. Maybe he is some sort of Alexander Luthor from, say, the Ultraman universe or something like that. I mean, we know that it's not, because that's not Ultraman. That's still Superman, just in a black suit. That was the bad Superman from his world. But what if this Lex Luthor really doesn't have nefarious goals? What if he legit believes that this Superman will turn and become evil like his, and we're actually looking at a protagonist who is being treated like an antagonist, but really his intentions are pure? We don't know till the end, but that's just my thoughts. I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy yet. It remains to be seen. But anyway, that's it. That's my thoughts on the show. I know it took a long time. It's long-winded, but I told you, I am not an expert at reviewing. I just open my mouth and spew out a bunch of thoughts, and hopefully they make sense. But hopefully you found it enlightening and fun and entertaining. If not, I'm sorry. I'll try harder next time. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you with the next video. Goodbye.